Welcome back to the Your Invisible Advantage podcast. It's me, T, and today we have another T with us, Tijana. She is Tiana. I always say Tijana.
Don't worry.
But this is Tij. This is one of my favorite people in the world, and she is our guest on today. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you so much for having me, by the way. And don't worry, like everyone calls me Tijana. And honestly, like sometimes I even get Tijuana. So if you're feeling fancy and you want to get like creative, by all means. My friends call me T, Tij, Tiana. A little bit about myself. I feel like I have like 27 personalities.
Love it. It's in your bio. I saw that.
Yes,
I love it.
27 personalities. If you're a Gemini, you know. I love all things business, life, growth, personal development. And a little fun fact about me, I was a carpenter by trade when I was younger. So by the time I was 19, I had my like carpentry trade and was in construction for about 5 years and kind of found myself on this personal development journey through all of these kind of like trials and tribulations of challenges and knockdowns and things that kind of like stopped me from growing, that kind of forced me to grow in myself and kind of find myself down the path of like life coaching and really getting support to kind of overcome those hurdles in my life.
I love that. And the reason I say Tijana is because if you speak about jalapenos, it's so random. When you speak about jalapenos and you make a joke and you're like jalapenos.
Oh my God, I say that with my sister all the time.
And it's like just a joke. Like that's how I joke in my head. It's like Tijana. So I'm like, I just call you Tij.
That's cool.
Anyway.
I'll take it.
Welcome to the show. But thank you for that intro. So let's dive straight into the good stuff. Mm-hmm. You said there was lots of trials along the way before you got into life coaching. Mm-hmm. So can you speak to us about, obviously, I know your story, you've done a whole podcast on it, but can you tell us the wrap-up version of what kind of led you to get into life coaching? Why was that the path that you decided to pursue?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about my journey and my path, like as like a young adolescent, I kind of felt like I didn't really have like the right ideals about life, right? But you don't know this until you don't know what you don't know, right? And so when I was younger, I was very much in this headspace of like wanting to go down and being supported by like a man, right? We go to the movies with our parents and we're like, oh my gosh, it's Cinderella. And, the Prince Charming is going to like sweep her off her feet. And I remember actually going to the movies with my mom and having that kind of response and being like, I'm going to have that one day. And it kind of led me down this path to like really like idolizing having a partner from a very young age. And so I remember being around like 15, 16 and, as like a young woman, you're full of hormones, you're like erratic, you're emotional, you're bratty, all of these sides of you are like coming out. And, as I was kind of developing, I found myself like, very curious, like, and very interested in like being in a relationship and dating and all of those things. And, I ended up, this was really random one time. I thought one day I found my Prince Charming, right? I was about 16 or 17 and I remember going to like a party, right? And like seeing him from across the room and being like, who the fuck is that? Like I need to know that man. And like the almost embarrassing part of the story that I don't want to tell you, but I will because we love them.
Shame.
We love it. We love the details. Is that I actually went to the party to meet his friend. And so we were talking online and anyway, went there and obviously that connection was it was definitely not it. And then I saw this man and I was like, oh my goodness, like I want to get to know you. Anyway, long story short, we ended up having like a 3.5 to 4 year on and off relationship until I was about 19. And anyway, that relationship, I thought it was it. I thought it was the white picket fence. I thought it was the 2.5 kids, the dog and, the house and, the vision that you envision when you think of like a man coming and like sweeping you off your feet and kind of taking you on that journey of like a real fairy tale. And it's interesting because, that relationship didn't work out and I'll explain why in a second. But there was this one day I ended up going on being a part of a contestant, like a pageant, and it was called Miss World Australia. And I did that and I was 19.
There's no surprise if you're looking at her, by the way. You're like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense.
Gas me up. And, I went on this pageant, right? And it started to get a little bit of traction. So it started to gain like a little bit of news attraction. They were writing stories and articles on me in my hometown. And, really random, like just a lot of people started to like talk about things. And, there was this one day I was sitting at home and I was sitting on my bed and one of my best friends, Laura, it was really late at night, like 10:30 at night. And she calls me really randomly and she goes, Tiana, I need to talk to you now. And I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. Because normally, you know, as a best friend, you just tell everything. You know, I was like, this is so strange for her to not actually tell me what's happened. Anyway, I'm like sitting on the end of my bed, like nervous as hell, watching Netflix, like wondering when she's going to get here. And she just like barges in, lets herself in, sits on the end of my bed. And she like looks me dead in the eye. And she's just like, Tijana, I overheard people talking about you at a party tonight at Jamie's house, which was her boyfriend at the time. And she goes to me, they were talking about a video that they had seen of you. And they were watching it on their phones around a fire. And like immediately my heart like fell out of my ass. Like my heart sank so far. And I was just like, what video? And she goes, the video of you and Matt being my ex-partner. And I just remember feeling so overwhelmed and scared because naturally, as you can imagine, put two and two together, that partner and I had made an intimate video when I was 17 years old. And that conversation that we had around making the video was, you know, obviously something that we had done in private. And anyway, I just remember feeling that moment and just like completely like falling apart and being so scared because the first thing that came to my head was a little bit about, you know, what am I going to do? And then it kind of spiraled from there and it was like, oh shit, like how many people have seen this? And then I felt even more sick because I was like, how the fuck am I going to explain this to my parents? And it was this long experience of me learning more and more from that moment, more and more how many people had actually seen this intimate video. And I'm talking like an intimate video that like you don't want people to see.
Yeah.
Like full frontal, like fully exposed, like my whole hometown and everyone that I knew in my hometown seeing me naked in a way, like literally having sex with my partner at the time in a way where, you know, no one should ever really see you in that way. And it's funny when I reflect on that experience, I really think and feel in the moment how impure I felt because I was judged and shamed and shunned and like ridiculed for being somebody who was like sexually expressed at such a young age and like feeling so in love that I could trust this person with my whole life. And then in that moment when I first found out, I was like, this is going to fucking ruin me. Like I'm never going to be able to do anything ever again. Like say goodbye to my future, say goodbye to anyone ever taking me seriously, say goodbye to ever respecting myself again. And it was such a challenging time to go through at that young age as well because what I had learned through time and time of people sharing that story with me and like sharing, you know, how they had known or seen the video or watched the video. I remember this one time being in the gym and somebody messaged me on a fake account and they were like, I just want to warn you that there's a group of guys watching the video behind your back while you train.
Wow.
And I remember like walking out of the gym and like bawling my eyes out because I was just like, I felt so sick that I felt so out of control, but like so dirty for just even wanting to have sex in the first place, you know? And then there's this like other layer of like being betrayed by somebody that you loved and somebody that you thought that you could trust. And I think the thing that like really rocked me was not only, and like I'll talk about like the judgment, the shame and all of that sort of stuff in a second, but like the betrayal from like somebody that you love doing something like that to you in such a vulnerable way, like the way that that makes you feel so fucking sick in your own body because it's like, it's not your choice.
Yeah, I feel like that's what comes up for me. Like I get goosebumps hearing that and I've heard that story before, but you know, and you've spoken that on stages and you do have that podcast episode if people want to actually dive into more of it, but it's such a violation of the most sacred part of you, right? And that is something that as women we do get so shame for and, you know, our sexuality, our how we present ourselves, like, so I can't even imagine what that would have been like for you. How did it actually play out with people around you? Like, let's say, for example, did people in your family react to the way they like you thought they would?
I think like when it comes to my family, I remember the moment when I told my parents. I was so embarrassed and I sat in front of my mum and dad and I just felt so sick because I knew my dad was like like to tell your dad that has happened is like the worst fucking feeling. And honestly, that's what I was worried about. I was like, what is my dad going to think of me? How is he going to love me after this? How is he not going to think that there's something wrong with me after being somebody who's been exposed to something like this? But to my surprise and like really like so much gratitude for this, like my parents were really beautiful in the way that they handled it. And, you know, don't get me wrong, my mum really wanted to tell me that like I told you so, you know, because she had actually told me time and time again as a young woman, she's like, don't ever let anybody film you. And it was the exact thing that I did because I was like young and naive and impressionable, you know. So in terms of family, I had a lot of support. I definitely noticed like my sisters had a bit of like an emotional reaction, a bit of a whiplash from that because obviously it was their reputation on the line too. And like the things that I did impacted their reputation as well. So I feel like I held a lot of guilt and like, yeah, just a lot of sadness for the fact that like something that I had done had hurt them in that way too.
So then my question is, how do you move forward from that? Like how did you, because obviously today you are so incredibly successful and you wouldn't even, you know, when we have a challenging thing in our life happen, we have two choices, right? We let that rule our life. We let that take over. We let that become the story of who we are. Oh, I'm the girl who had the sex tape made about me. Whatever story, carry it on. It goes on throughout our whole life and we have that choice or we have another choice, which is to not let that dictate us, not let that rule our life. Now, I actually don't know, but did you let it control you for a certain period of time and did you kind of like navigate your way out of that? Did you make a decision straight away of this isn't going to define me? Like how did that go?
So from the moment I remember I was sitting on the bathroom floor in the shower crying. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I can never go outside again. I'm going to have to move towns. I'm going to have to leave. There's no way that I can show my face in this town again. And if I'm being completely honest, like I spiraled for a while after that because I just started drinking as well. I was kind of at that age where I was exploring drinking and kind of wanting to go out. And I really kind of fell down like a bad path where I leaned on alcohol a little bit too much. And alcohol at the time was a way for me to kind of suppress like all of the shame that I had built and that was created from that experience. Like I'm talking like I would go to a bar and people would be whispering slut like behind my back or like as I walk past and be like, oh, there she is. Yuck.
Were you a
like,
small town?
Yeah, small town. I lived in Wollongong. So there's like 300,000 people, but like when you know the people there, like it's very small and like all people do is like talk about everybody there. It's not a very expansive kind of place to live.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like the talk of the town for a really long time. And I just remember thinking like, how am I going to make any new friends? And every time that I did make a new friend, the thing that happened in the back of my head was like, have they seen the video? Do they know about it? Have they watched it? Are they laughing at me behind my back? And I think, again, I really needed to go down that real bad path of like losing myself in alcohol and drugs because, and I like, party drugs. Because it like gave me relief from what I was feeling. And so there was a period of like a good like 6 months where I did that and I fell down this path because it allowed me to like avoid the shame and like the judgment and all of the things that I was carrying. And then there was one time I actually put myself in hospital accidentally.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I had to obviously just pushed it too far, went a little bit silly. And I remember I was supposed to go to work on the Monday and I woke up and I couldn't move my neck. And I laid in bed and I was like, okay, I'm not going to tell anybody. It's going to be fine. I kept going. Tuesday went on. Wednesday went on. I still couldn't move my neck. Friday came around. I hadn't slept in like 5 days. I was so scared that I'd like fucked my neck. And I remember calling my mum and being like telling her and just bursting out in tears and just being like, I think something is wrong. And I told her what had happened. And anyway, I ended up going to the hospital and they put like a 30 centimeter like needle in my spine to collect like spinal fluid because what they had told me was that I had temporarily paralyzed my neck. And whatever it was that I had taken or done obviously just didn't mix well and like put me in a really dangerous position.
Shit.
So I was in hospital for a couple, like 48 hours. They flushed my system. I was fine, thankfully. And I remember seeing a doctor after that and them saying to me, Tijana, if you keep going, by the time that you're 30, your kidneys are going to fail.
How old were you?
I was probably, how old was I then? I was 19 when I found out. Yeah.
So then what happens next? Like how do you get from all of this happening, the pivotal time and period.
Yeah.
Then we're going into, all right, we're now starting to spiral, going down an unhealthy path. How does that then kick into gears and start to change? Because when I met you, right, was a few years ago now, maybe 2022, something like that. How did that version of you that I met in 2022, you're a confidence coach for women.
Yeah.
You have friendships around you that you have friendships around you that you seem like when I first met you, none of that I even knew was you.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were into drugs. I didn't know you were into partying, alcohol or anything, because you are complete 180 of that in your life now.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like you had a different group of friends around you who weren't doing that.
Yeah.
They were very conscious, very organic, that type of vibe. So how the fuck did you get there?
Well, honestly, it was like getting myself to hitting rock bottom, right? I had already hit rock bottom with the video. I hit a second rock bottom when I hit the alcohol. And so for me, it was like it was like a pivotal realization. It was, Tijana, you need to wake the fuck up. Like if you don't, you're going to go down a very bad path. And I was literally saying to myself, if you don't pull yourself in, you don't pull your head in, you're literally going to die. Or something like this is going to happen and you're going to go down a very bad path. And all of that led from feeling so out of control and exposed in this video. And so from that, even after the video happened, I remember saying to myself, regardless of what anybody says, you're going to walk around this fucking town with your head held high and you're going to own it. And you're going to own who you are and you're going to own everything that you've been through, what you did, and you're going to act like it doesn't bother you. And then I would just go and cry behind closed doors, right?
Yeah.
But then after all of the alcohol and that kind of experience happened and it kind of scared me into just really pulling my head in, I turned my life around. Every single decision that I had made from that moment was this decision of sink or swim, Tijana. And if you don't swim, you're going to sink and it's going to be your fault. And it just made me realize that yes, all of these things have happened and this video was exposed and sure, people saw it and whatever, but that doesn't determine my life. And I think the biggest thing that I walked myself through was who gives a fuck what anybody else thinks? It doesn't matter what you've been through. It doesn't matter how many people have judged you, people's assumptions about you, what people project onto you because of their own sexual shame or whatever it is. It's none of that is actually relevant. And what I kept coming back to every single day that I stayed in that town, I remember thinking, I'm going to run. And I'm leaving this fucking town. And I remember facing myself and looking myself in the mirror and going, if you run now, you will run forever. And I stayed. And I was I'm going to, literally I remember having the conversation and being I'm going to stay for at least 2 years. Because at least if I can stay for the 2 years and I can learn to love myself whilst I'm still here, I'll be fine for the rest of my life.
Holy shit, I have goosebumps hearing that. Imagine just being in that position and having to make that decision where most people, they genuinely would have let that continue for the rest of their life, that internal talk. And it's so interesting to me, you've talked about this on another podcast as well. So when we come into this new stage of your life where things are, you're starting to take care of yourself more, you're starting to make better choices, you have better people around you, etc. Then when I met you, a little bit after that, I feel like things were working for you, but they weren't really working the way you wanted them to, whether it was with your business, whether it was whatever. But it was I feel like you weren't doing what you wanted to be doing. And it was kind of pushing shit up a hill for a little bit.
Yeah.
But really interesting is you went through another situation of social isolation.
Yeah.
So you actually went through, it wasn't a partner or a boy this time, it was actually a friendship.
Yeah.
Right? And then there was a whole group of people, essentially, if we put it shortly, go listen to the episode, but it was turn their back on you.
Yeah.
And then you're ostracized. So it's this social isolation has been a big theme.
Yeah.
And I feel we're always given our greatest core wound is our biggest gift. So how do you handle when everyone turns on you? Well, you turn that into self-worth, self-confidence, which is ironically what you teach, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how it works.
Yeah.
Our pain becomes our purpose. So cliche, but true.
No, it's so true.
And so you found yourself in that situation once again.
Yeah.
So how did it feel being back there a second time, just in a different manifestation?
I think it was a completely different experience. So it definitely did rock me, that's for sure. And I think it took me a little bit of time to realize that I was kind of going through the same initiation. But what I took from the video was that the 3 things that I really learned in the video, especially, was to learn how to care about what I feel and think about myself instead of what everybody else does. to care more about the person that I am and the level of integrity that I have, and to kind of like push people's words and things like that off like it's no water off my back, you know, like learning how to like actually shield that from myself.
Like a barrier.
Like a barrier,
Yeah.
100%. And so that's kind of what I learned from that experience. This other experience definitely rocked me, that's for sure. I think it's one thing to lose someone that you love who, you know, in this terms is like was my best friend, and to feel like pushed out and manipulated from kind of like that dynamic with her to then having a whole group of women basically like I had ostracized is probably the good word. I was going to say like abandoned, but that's my core wound of like going through that experience was like abandonment all over again, but not with one person, but with like 20. So I think being faced with that again felt like another rock bottom for me, because it was around the time when I was like learning how to build business, and I was just coming into like my business game and all of those things, and learning how to deal with that whilst going through navigating business felt like a really challenging thing, because again, I was out of control. I couldn't control the narrative of what people were saying about me. People were making up false assumptions about me, lying behind my back, saying that I stole money, saying that I stole their man, like all of these like real shit things that people do regardless of what age that you're at. And that in itself, like being isolated, almost like kicked out from like the group.
Yeah.
Is just like, it was like another layer of grief. But what I did in that time, and something that obviously I learned how to bounce back slightly more quicker than what I did the first time, was that I actually reached out to you, Tay, for coaching. And that honestly saved me. Like I went through like a good 12 months of grief in that period of feeling isolated, feeling abandoned, questioning myself, making myself the bad guy, overly taking responsibility for something that, you know, I wasn't solely responsible for. I definitely played my part, don't get me wrong. But yeah, it was like in that moment, it was like, I'm going to sink or swim, sink or swim, Tijana. And that was me. I was like, okay, I don't have the money right now, but I'm going to fucking find the money. And then I invested in you as a coach, and you supported me through that journey. And it was fucking heartbreaking. Like it's heartbreaking to lose a best friend, let alone to have that person then turn all these people against you. And granted, some of my behavior totally did some of that itself. I'm not saying that I'm innocent whatsoever. We all have lessons to learn. And it was just another initiation for me of like, how strong can I hold true to myself when everyone is against me? And I think that's been the biggest lesson in all of this is like, and I think that's why I can do what I do now with my clients and what I do, like my own podcast, She Rises, you know, the retreats that we're running, the one-on-one coaching that I'm doing, like all of that, like all of it is built off this foundation of me being able to be solid in myself, no matter what anybody is saying, no matter what anybody is doing. And it's interesting because like when I see people say things or, you know, they judge or, you know, people talk shit about us on social media and slamming us for, you know, oh my gosh, I have like 2 less brain cells listening to you. Like when people say shit like that, I'm like, it actually doesn't touch sides. It doesn't touch the sides because I'm like, I've been through so much worse. People have seen my literal naked body when I didn't give them permission to do so, literally without my consent. Like nothing that you can say can literally hurt me. And so I think like what's been really pivotal conversations, what's been really pivotal for me in my journey is learning that people can't hurt you unless you let them. And that's a choice. It's a fucking choice. And when you go through things like public humiliation and, you know, isolation and being ostracized or anything that is coming from the outside world, you have the choice in how bad you allow that to impact you. And don't get me wrong, it still hurts.
Yeah.
You're a human. Like you have feelings and emotions, and sometimes it's heavier than others. Like so some days are heavier than others. But there's got to come a point where you pull yourself out of the trenches and be the person that you wish somebody could have been in that time.
And that's our sole purpose in life and I think it's a process of grief, you know, and that's really the work that we did together was I wasn't helping you focus on what anyone did to you. I wasn't like, oh, they did this, like I was actually just helping you see how, you know, you can stay in a powerless state.
Yeah.
You can absolutely stay there, which I feel like in the first circumstance, right? First scenario, I think that's probably what happened was there was a bit of that powerlessness and feeling like you were totally out of control. But the second time it happened, like you said, you learned how to have better coping. You learned how to have a stronger state internally.
Yeah.
Therefore, your external didn't spiral into the addictions, into the negative like behaviors because you were more solid internally. Because when you came to me, like we didn't focus at all on anyone else. We didn't talk about the other people, the other girls, the group. Like we didn't talk about any of that. We were like, let's look at you. Let's look at your state. And I feel like that's the most pivotal thing that people don't realize is it doesn't really matter what the situation or scenario is. It's how you decide that moment is going to impact your life and how you're going to actually pivot from that. Something you said was public humiliation. And that is something that is the biggest core wound of humans. That is something that is on the top of the top of the top. That's why public speaking is people's number one top fear in the world. And it's ironic that you went and took speaking classes to learn how to speak and articulate yourself better because that's your core wound. So you're finding any way you can to actually, it's like you're running now towards your fears. And it's like the version of you at 19 probably didn't have the internal capacity or external support to be able to do that. So I think that's so fucking cool. So now, because this has to be a little bit of a shorter episode, and I'm so sorry for that, but we're going to have her back on again, guys. But talk about where you're at now. This work that you have done on yourself is now obviously the work that you help women with. So you now run international retreats. You run retreats here in Byron Bay. You are doing a podcast, which is an amazing, insane podcast with your best friend. You have supportive people around you. You don't drink. You're not a big partier. You're, really, I guess, conscious in your relationships to make sure you're co-creating these relationships. You feel safe and nurtured and supported. So what is the difference between that Tijana when the tape was made, those things that happened, to the version of you now? If you could look at like the main, I know you said the three main things before, but if you were to describe to someone else, what you think has really changed in your life, how would you word it?
Everything.
I'm not the same person.
No, like here's the thing, right? And this is going to sound really harsh, but like when you don't love who you are, you go through a phase of like self-loathing. I made a pact with myself to change everything about myself until I was happy. That's it. I changed everything about myself until I was happy. And that's the biggest thing is like, one, my self-worth changed. I had no self-worth to begin with, which is why I got myself in those positions in the first place. Going through those initiations and the public humiliation multiple times and also everything else, that allowed me to learn how to feel worthy in myself. And then the next part was like learning how to talk to myself kindly through those things when those things were happening and being my own support system. And then the next thing after that is like execution. Execution in like actually actioning the change that you want in your life and not sitting on, this beautiful dreamland life that you want. Because trust me, I was a dreamer for so many years. And those were the years when my life was so stagnant. And it wasn't until I stopped dreaming and I started implementing did I actually see change in my life. And I remember saying to myself, I remember hearing this quote once and it was like, if you are talking, you are not doing. And if you are doing, you are not talking. And it changed my life because I was like, I'm such a talker. And I was like, oh my God, if I sit with myself and I'm super honest, I'm a talker. I'm a dreamer. I'm not doing anything. And so I made it this thing for myself of being like, I'm not going to stop until I become somebody who is a doer and not a talker. And honestly, I'd even have to catch myself in the midst where I wanted that like validation from somebody of being like, oh, I'm doing this or I'm going to start this. I would stop myself and I say, no, I can tell them after I have evidence. And that changed my life.
That is so fucking good. I've actually never heard that before. That is so good. And I feel like that's now the work that you help women with. It's like you were forged in the fire. Like you had to go through the fire. There's no way you could help women the way that you do now, have so much fire, passion, such a strong why supporting you to go out and impact women's lives like you do. And I see the results you get. I see the impact you are having with women. Like I listen to your podcast. I'm impacted by you. Like, you've hired me, but just as much like you are inspiring to me. And
thank you, babe.
I feel like you are such an inspiration for women to show that your vulnerability is actually your strength. That's your superpower. That is the thing that if you can go through the fire, you always come out on the other side. But if you go into the fire and then decide to sit down, well, you're going to fucking burn yourself.
Something that you always told me was that my vulnerability was my strength. And it changed my life because being able to own my truth no matter what that looks like, whether it's vulnerability, whether it's the things that I've been through or the hardships that I've had to go through. When you own your story, like no one can hold that against you. And that has been my biggest thing in all of this, of the sex tape and, you know, the friendship breakdowns and every other initiation that I've had after that I haven't voiced today, is that I lost my train of thought.
If you own your story.
Yes, right.
Like no one else can own it over you.
Right. If you own your story, it's like people can't say anything. And I think it just makes you so bulletproof when you realize that like when you are in control of the narrative, no one can say anything. And even if they do, who gives a fuck? Because it is actually so insignificant when you look at the trajectory of your life and what you want to create. And honestly, the different stages of my life, if you knew, like if you see this person today and anyone who knows me now would not recognize me 10 years ago. And that's exactly how I want it to be. And it'll be like that again in another 10 years. And I just like, I hope for anybody who's listening who feels like you owe anybody anything, you don't. You don't. You can change your life at any given moment and you can literally wake up. You can decide in this podcast right now that you don't like the way that your life is. You don't like how you show up. You don't like how you talk. You don't like who you're engaging with. You don't like how you're operating or how you're moving when it comes to the things that are important to you. And you can simply just choose to wake up one day and change everything about that. But I do like this saying where it's like, we can have everything, but not everything all at once.
Yeah.
And so one piece of advice that I would have for anybody who's listening is to work on one problem at a time until you feel integrated in that, until you feel like, oh, this feels really easy. It doesn't feel hard or challenging anymore. Then move on to the next thing. Because that's what the last 10 years of my life has been. And I can't tell you how worlds apart my life is, from the party goer, drinking, doing drugs, feeling shame, feeling, hiding and all the things, to, now running 2 successful businesses, running a podcast, doing international retreats, coaching hundreds and hundreds of women, having, tens of thousands of women listen to our podcast. It's like, I really believe that like without the initiations and the pain and everything that I had to go through, I wouldn't be able to coach the way that I do. But I'm so fucking glad that I was somebody who was able to hold all of that. So when a client comes into me and she's been sexually abused, I can hold her.
Yeah.
Or a client who's come in and she's been raped, I can fucking hold her. Or, gone through something so significantly traumatic when it comes to public humiliation or judgment or anything of the sort, like they know that I've got their back. And it's not because I'm sitting here reading off a textbook going, oh my gosh, I did the class and did this. I'm like, no, I've sat in the fucking trenches with you before and I've had to live through that. And I can pull you out to the other side and I know you'll be able to pull yourself out too. And I just think that there is nothing that you can't achieve if you just are so willing to go all in. And, there's this quote that I heard and I can't remember who it's by. I wish I could quote them. But it was like, did you try or did you move the fucking world to make it happen?
Oh, that's so powerful. I'm going to have to Google that and see who said that.
And it's true. Like the reality is most of us never put in 100% towards anything that we want.
Yeah.
If you're honest with yourself, and like I was honest with myself, I wasn't putting in 100% until I had that conversation with myself and completely changed the game for myself. So if you're listening and you're asking yourself this question, ask yourself out of 10, what effort level are you actually putting in? And how much more do you actually have to give? Because I promise you've got so much more in the tank than you could possibly think that you do.
100%. I think that's the perfect way to sum up the whole episode. And I'm so annoyed that we don't have more time and that we have to wrap it up. But they're the 2 things that I stand on for my through line with my business, no matter what I'm doing, is own your story, because it can't own you. No one else can tell you you're wrong for what's happened to you. Yeah. Only you can. And then secondly is your current destination is never your final destination.
I love that.
Ever. They're my through lines that I will die on the fucking hill of. This conversation, short and freaking sweet, but it's going to be so impactful. We're going to get you on for a second one.
I would love that.
We'll go an hour and a half next time to make up for it.
Honestly, girls can yap. Girls can yap.
But thank you so much. Okay, what have you got coming up in your world that people can either come and find you, come work with you? Tell all the details.
Amazing. So at the moment, we have a accelerated program that just closed up, so that doesn't have access anymore. However, we do have 2 retreats coming up. So one, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
2 seconds, intermission.
We're going to have to cut that out.
No, it's not getting cut. You're like, oh no, shit.
I love that. Okay, so what's coming up at the moment? We have retreats coming up. We've got a Byron Bay retreat in April that we only have a couple of day passes left. All of the sleepover passes are sold out. Then we also have an international retreat in Bali that's also sold out, and an international retreat in September, which is also sold out.
Oh my God, that's insane.
Very, very soon in April and May, we will be releasing tickets for another Byron Bay retreat in November, and then a 2027 retreat for Bali. So that's kind of what's coming up at the moment. Other than that, we do have our membership, which is called Rise Inside. It's basically our transformational vault for all things personal development. And we are looking to do some more like online programs and things like that in the future. Also, if you're a dancer and you love dancing, or maybe you want to dance and you're scared, keep an eye out.
Just keep watch.
Just watch.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I have loved having you on. I love talking with you just about absolutely anything. You are the most insane, inspiring human, and keep being vulnerable.
Thank you, my love.
It truly heals the world.
Thank you, my love. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you guys for listening. If you love this episode, please give us a review, give us a comment, tag us on social media so that we can share the love with you, and come and tell us what you liked about the episode, or if anything really landed, and if Tij changed your life today, because there's some quotes I'm going to write down. Thank you guys. See ya.
Bye.